So how you doing, Greg?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Little tired, but feeling good and good to be here talking to you, Matt.
Yeah, it's been a while. The last time I saw you was at the Me Without You Pedro show, which was like the first show that I saw you guys. I took like a little breather from seeing you guys. But yeah, I think I missed like a Salt Lake show and then like another show. So it was really cool to see y'all before COVID upended
Yeah. So that was
everything.
back in August in Nashville, right?
I
That
I
show?
think so. Yeah,
Yeah. That
yeah.
sounds about right. Or last August at this point, but yeah.
Yeah. So like,
Um,
was that the last? That wasn't the last tour y'all did before everything happened,
no, that
right?
was the
No.
last tour of 2019 we did, and then we had a big
Right.
break before we did Thrice, and that was like a in
Right.
all last week of January, all of February. So we pretty much flew home, and then like a week later, with the pandemic started or the lockdown.
That's so
So
wild.
yeah,
It's really wild. It-
yeah. So we squeezed it in right before the
yeah.
madness.
And I did a podcast with Mike, which was like really interesting to get like his point of view because he's like running the band. He's the manager.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
so I guess I want to start off there because yeah, you had that tour with Thrice, and you came back home. Like, do you feel like at the end of that tour, like, was that when you started hearing about like this potential thing happening, like off in China, or was it a little bit later?
it was. I mean, I remember hearing about it on NPR like the week before we left for tour in like mid January, and like, just like a catching your ear, but like, you know, very American response. It's like you hear it, and it's up in this other part of the world, and you're just
Yeah,
like, wow, that's sad, but that's not here. I mean, just to be honest, just because with all going on, it's just sort of
yeah,
like not like a not in like a dismissive way of other people, but I think just like when you're just in your world, you're just kind of like, yeah, that's happening. Wow, that's terrible, but
hmm,
like you don't really, or at least I shouldn't say you. I didn't really I don't know how seriously I kind of took that
yeah,
what was going on. And then you start to hear about it a little more during tour. Turns out a few of the guys were sick in early tour, and that was we started in
right,
the Pacific Northwest. We started actually in Northern California, which is where they say they kind of traced it earlier than they thought back to there.
hmm,
Again, I'm not saying that anybody had it at that point. I'm not sure. It could have just been a flu or other sickness. But we were dealing with some sickness on that tour, and then I even definitely had more of awareness of it at the end of tour because we ended the tour in LA and we had to fly home. And I remember feeling like, again, not knowing it's how rampant it had become, but I think there was a sense of like, we're going on a plane. This thing's kind of like seems like it's picking up. I wonder if this is like a bad environment, to be on a plane right now
hmm,
during this. And then coming home, and then like my wife actually then flew to the West Coast to visit a friend in Washington State,
yeah,
right as they were kind of like
right,
calling it, and then she came home early. So it was all like everything was kind of shifting. It was a big paradigm shift happening that first week back for us.
yeah.
And then there we were mid-March, staying at home. So
And it's wild because I can't remember the timing of when you guys announced that 2020 was going to be it. So you're already like winding down in like one way,
yeah.
like probably like making plans like for
Oh yeah.
2021, like personally. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden this happens. So you're just like, what the, all right. Like what the heck was it like frustrating to be in this mode of like, okay, we're going to do brother sister. We're going to do that tour. Then all these other tours that you had set up. Was
Yeah.
it frustrating or did you just like take it in stride?
I felt like we took it in stride. I personally did. And I feel like even our dialogue as a band, I think because there was so much, at least in the beginning, anxiety and kind of hysteria. Not that I know it's still serious and
Yeah.
it is still serious, but like I think for a lot of folks, I know it's kind of like learning to navigate your new normal, living with it almost, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So being safe. But I think in the beginning, I know for me, there was a lot more anxiety and just sort of like, what is happening right now? And like, so I think when tour felt like way down the list as far as priorities, it wasn't,
Yeah.
I don't think any of us felt like, no, damn it, we got to do this tour. It's kind of like, what's going to be safe? It doesn't seem like it's going to be safe by this summer. We like initially pushed brother sister from the spring to the summer. That even felt optimistic. And then obviously,
Yeah.
as we know now in the fall, mid fall, it's like, okay, shows, events like that aren't happening
Hmm.
for a while, probably maybe until the spring, I think is the most optimistic projection at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah. I think the most optimistic for sure. Like, we were talking before, like we started recording like the doom scrolling. Well, part of that, like when you're on
Yeah.
Twitter or whatever
Yeah.
else, like you're hearing, you're reading from like epidemiologists, you're hearing from like
Yeah.
Fauci or whatever. And like in my mind, like how all of a sudden like I'm a backseat like epidemiologist expert, you know, like, well, you
Totally.
know, you're scratching your beard, but like to me, it feels like 2022 at this point.
Ooh.
Like
Yeah.
hypothetically, I'm not getting political. It's just the reality of what we're doing. It's like, well,
Yeah.
if Biden wins, like,
Yeah.
and he does whatever he needs to do, like, who knows how long that's gonna take?
Totally. Totally.
And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, are you even like that far out in your like worst case scenarios, or like are you just like whatever at this point?
I think kind of whatever, but I think we're banking on we don't really have anything planned for the spring. I don't even know. I mean, to be honest, I don't even know. Anquist could answer this better, but I think we're signed on to do Furnace Fest at this point, which is supposed to be in May. Again, who knows if that will happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like we are hoping, we are highly optimistic that we can get in our farewell tour next fall.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if Brother Sister has a place on the calendar anymore, just with all the moving around and shifting. We were supposed to do a Brother Sister anniversary tour, and yeah. So at this point, it looks like we're hoping that the farewell tour can happen a year from now. And I feel pretty I mean, I think, yeah, you're right. As far as like rolling things out for like, I think, you know, if the therapeutics get better and that hopefully a safe vaccine can be, you know, distributed late this year, early next year. If that's the case, then maybe people, including us, will feel comfortable enough to be in venues, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I mean, who knows? I think about this a lot, like too, like what these kind of events historically have changed some things culturally. So will people just kind of come to shows in masks now? Is that going to be like, or like a handful of people probably in the early post-pandemic years might do that, you know, and it might be a more normal thing, you know, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't know if we can do that on stage, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Now I'm just like thinking like, because I've tried like singing just in the car or just like as I'm walking around with the mask on, and like and it's just like coming down, like,
oh man,
seeing like, is there a plexiglass like between you, like,
yeah,
it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to like wonder about, but like,
right,
I've seen like a church do it. When I saw that happen, I'm like, well, it's better than nothing, you know, compared to if you're going to be inside, if everyone's masked up, you got plexiglass. I don't know what else you can do, you know?
Right. Right.
So like,
and then there's the Flaming Lips bubbles too. They were like played shows in their hamster balls.
So there's an old promoter back home in Utah that has like a relationship with them, and he was able to go. So he like took video of inside of his bubble and everything.
Oh, right.
So
on.
it was really cool to see. But to your point about like everyone wearing masks, like even like for me potentially going back into like an office, it's like, I don't want to go in unless like rates are so low that like you can probably make that gamble and be okay, or if everyone's wearing a mask. So to your point, like if you sell limited tickets, like say if it's like 1,000 cap and you only plan on selling 500, and no, I doubt anyone's going to want to mosh or get close. Like you might be able to, I don't know the economics behind that. I don't know if you're jacking up your prices on tickets, but that's an interesting call, you know, because if everyone's wearing their masks like at Furnace Fest, for instance, and it's outdoors, you know, and we can kind of gauge how that would go with the protests earlier this year, because most people were masked at those, versus like the White House debacle. No one was masked.
Or like Sean Foyt, you know, like events, we'll call them.
And there was a spike in Nashville after that. So,
man.
So it's like, I mean, I don't know, like there's no one saying it's one way or the other, but it's like,
right.
So, but like you can only, it's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see how like touring and shows play a difference, because I do think if there's any place that you could probably enforce like a mask requirement, like you could do it at a show. People would be don't F this up for us.
Yeah, totally. No doubt. Especially because people are going to be longing for like, I mean, live events in general, be it like sports or music or like, you know, I think there's going to be a hunger for that kind of gathering, you know, in the midst of people learning how to navigate it. But also to answer your question about like, our plans. Like, well, we knew this was supposed to be our farewell year about 2 years ago, because when I rejoined the band in early 2018, part of my coming back was being told that like, we're going to do this for like 2.5 more years. And I was like, okay, like there's light at the end. But somebody on the Me Without You, there's like the Facebook group, like the Foxes in the Vineyard, I think it's called, the fan page or something. And people were posting that we made our farewell tour announcement a year ago, like yesterday. So there was like the anniversary of that. So I guess about a year. I made a reference to this, I think, on another podcast, but we joked early on the Untitled tour in 2018, the first few shows in the Northeast, which are usually really good markets for us, were before the record came out, there were like 2 shows were like a little less than stellar as far as attendance. And we were just like, we usually do like really good here. And I was making a joke in the green room that like, sometimes the farewell tour chooses you, you don't choose this. Maybe this is people telling us that they're done coming to our shows.
Yeah.
And funny enough, the farewell tour did choose us, but just under different circumstances. So
yeah. To pivot to more Me Without You talk, like I thought, like it's interesting you say that, like you had the kind of the foresight of like, hey, this is our plan, 2.5 years. So like, and I know you had left to go back to school, right? Essentially
for Isaac being born and to finish grad school. Yeah.
And so for me, when you came back into the band, like just from like a fan point of view, but like it was really cool to see you back, because like you've been such a part of like the fraternity for so long, one way or the other. Like, because like I can't remember how I found about you personally first, whether you playing with Me Without You or the Operation, because I had a friend that had an Operation CD.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, who's that? Because I knew Aaron was in it, but I'm like, who's that singing? But then when two and two came together, I figured it out. And so when you came back, that was like, okay, cool, because like it felt right, you know. On. And so like to you, when I don't know if they asked you to come back, but like. I imagine that it felt right too, knowing that was going to end. Like, is that correct to assume?
Yeah, totally. Well, actually, I was like hiding in the rafters of a venue where Dom, the guy who was playing before me, was playing, and I kind of like dropped the burlap sack on him, pulled him into the closet, put on like a blonde wig, and just kind of reintegrated into the band. Now, so I had just, it was actually great timing. It was like 2 years almost to the date. So I quit, not for any ill reason, but to finish school. It's like a new chapter of life. My son was about to be born. I'm just like, there was a lot of touring on the table for that year. I'm like, I just don't have it in me, dude. So Dom, who we had met through touring, really good dude, integrated well with the guys, and was like a great hired gun for a couple years, and helped write Untitled, and was like, just a really solid dude. He was never committed to being a full-time member, and kind of vice versa. It was like, this is like the agreement. We're like, we're doing this, as it is right now, not really knowing where it's going to go. He started getting busy with other tour offers. And so Aaron called me. I had just graduated a month prior to him calling me, and I had just applied for a job that wasn't related to my degree, but I didn't get. So it was like this funny timing where like 2 days after I got like rejected for this job, he called me, and I thought he was just calling to say what's up. And a couple minutes into the conversation, he was just like, let's just cut to the chase. He's like, it's a long shot, but he's like, do you think your life is in a place where like you'd like kind of be able to ride this out with us and kind of, ride into the sunset together, And I was like, actually, I think it would. And Marley was super supportive, and it felt like you said, it felt right. It felt like any other time, I don't know, if I could have said yes, but I think when I came back, there was this sense in myself and them. I remember when we first practiced and we had like 2 one-off shows with Tiger's Jaw before we did like a tour. And I think we all had this sense of like, it felt like home, and it was really sweet. I think we were all like, whoa, like this, for me and for them, it was like, oh, okay, this makes sense, or feels right, like you said, So it was nice to have that affirmed on on all sides, kind of, that like, this is how we want to do it.
It's a funny theme that keeps like coming up within like the interviews I do, like talking about that sort of like chemistry within a band. Because like, I can't imagine at this point in my life, like mid-30s, like starting another band and hoping that like I can get along with people and have to make music with them.
Totally.
It's like I don't know if this is going to turn into old man hour here, but it's like I just don't have like the patience for it anymore. So you just kind
Yeah.
of got to go with like what A, like what you know, but B, like where the relationships are strong, where
Yes.
like the music doesn't
Yes.
matter. And I think
Yes.
like, again from a fan's point of view, like that's what was so like the rightful order of Me Without You is it. No
Right.
offense to Dom because he did a great job like
Oh
on
yeah.
on like
Yeah.
that record,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, so it was really cool to see again. So
Awesome.
as a fan, and so also coming back to like 2020 in general. So you also do a project called Geology. So I
Hmm.
remember seeing like you doing stuff with that like a few years ago.
Yeah.
But you put out a new record this year, so it's on
Hmm.
Spotify everywhere. Plug, plug, plug. But correct me if I'm wrong in remembering. You put that out not the beginning of COVID, but you were trying to put it out like in May, right? April, May.
Yeah. I had it's I've been working on it for about 2 years, on and off.
Mm,
I don't say that as just like for 2 years, my blood, sweat, and tears. It was like I just realized it takes me that long having like a toddler starting when he was 2. It's just like
it's hard.
and being a stay-at-home dad when I'm not on tour, it's like
Mm,
finding the time and the energy to put into like this group of songs. It took me, like on and off for 2 years to finish it. And so I had all the instrumentals. I had like 15 instrumentals recorded and done by like the beginning of COVID. And then I just had this task of like which ones are going to stick and which are going to, and then actually recording and executing the vocals the way I wanted to. So I took
mm,
about a month and a half toward the beginning of quarantine to finish that. Just spent like most nights. And so then I had it lined up to release, I think like June 3rd or something. It was like one of the Bandcamp days.
yeah.
And that was the week either just after or the week of George Floyd's death. And like a lot of the social uprising and protests and
Mm,
a lot of the social narrative was so focused there that the idea of self-promotion felt a little out of place and I had the
yeah.
luxury because I've talked to friends who put out records around that time that were more on a label schedule.
Yeah.
And we've kind of talked about some of that tension, but because mine's self-release and just recorded at home, it's like, why, this is within my power so I moved it. I think ended up moving it a month. I think I waited until the next Bandcamp Friday, which was in July.
Yeah.
So
I can't remember if I had to make a call too, because like my schedule in like creating music and like I'm putting it out and like self promotion, like I'm
yeah,
trying to hit like a month and a half, 2 months at a time between like singles, right? Because I'm kind of like
yeah,
on in a
yeah,
single thing right now.
yeah. I was going to say, even doing like a song in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In I remember seeing it like with your release and the others where like it became like it felt really icky,
Hmm.
So it's almost like what's our role? Like it made people think, at least for myself, and I hope most artists, like what's the role of what we do? Because like
Yeah.
I was talking to some friends the other day about like self promotion and just how it just feels so like gross
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But especially like during that moment over those moments, because like I think you had to push
Totally.
it back twice. I remember seeing something where
I did. Yeah, I
yeah,
did. Well, I pushed. I gave it like the first push was like I'm gonna wait a few days and see how this feels. Then I think I shot for like the middle of June. And I was just like I'm still sitting on this, until and then it ended up being about a month, about 4 weeks.
yeah. So like do you feel like in our in our the way things are right now, like in the country socially,
Hmm.
like, do you feel like now more than ever it's more important to be an artist, or are you just kind of, or do you take more of like a, I'm just doing what I do and whatever? Like where do you sit?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I I think it's like yeah, I think like I was saying, like my art being really self-reflective and kind of hyper focusing on my emotional landscape, and then hoping to reflect some bigger themes that are more universal and relatable from that place. But it felt difficult in a time where it felt like there ought to be space for other voices,
Mm-hmm.
particularly about the narrative surrounding systemic racism, police brutality, among other things. And I had some of the tension of, man, like me, like you said, the self-promotion part can feel weird, but even if you feel proud of something and you want to, excited to share it, it's still this sense of like, it felt like it was about me, and in some sense it is, or most of the sense there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, I reached out to a few folks. I was saying, there was this singer-songwriter that I connected with. I think, if I'm pronouncing her name right, Haley Sabella. She had a record release. We connected through Instagram during this time, and we were talking about a little bit about that tension of having something released right in the midst of this social narrative. And then I reached out to Jonathan Ford on Wet Sailor, because he had a record, I think that same week released, and I wrote him privately. I was just like, how are you feeling about, how are you navigating that, Yeah. And he had a similar tension with it, but actually both he and Haley were really supportive, and even talking about their own processes where it was like, to your point, like, yes, there is, we do need to make space for these things, and hopefully we are, but we're still who we are, and our art is still in us. And I think people need beauty and need art, artistic expression right now. So I think it's okay to like sidestep and acknowledge this other narrative, but also to honor the creative process and the way that can give life to people too. So that encouraged me to be like, okay, I can do this now. And I had a lot of people, very thoughtful people, again, that are aligned with a lot of the social movements happening, but also were like, it's okay. Like you're still you with your experience. So you sharing something that is moving or beautiful or inspiring to you or from you is a welcome addition to the world.
Yeah, cause I sometimes I fall on like the cynic side, where like, so for me, I'm scrolling through Instagram, and like, although like it's amazing what happened out of like such like negativity, but then every now and again you see like something on Twitter or Instagram being like, well, don't do anything, like this is time to like step aside, which I agree. I agreed with to a point, but then you have to ask the follow-up question, is like, well, when is it ever appropriate to do what you got to do? Like would feel like you need to do, because I don't know if you're like me, whereas like if I didn't have, like if Spotify didn't exist, if like putting out records didn't exist, like would I still be making songs? And like after like a year or two of not doing it, at one point I'm like, yeah, I probably would. Like keep doing it, because it's just like, not like the tortured artist thing, like, but like sometimes you just feel compelled and you can't explain why. It's just like it's in your soul. And so when I see like messages like that, well, like I kind of turn into like FU mode. Like, well, don't tell me what to do. Like very like contrarian, like cynic, whatever.
Right.
But I do think like for a moment there, like for the month or so, it was completely appropriate to be like, yeah, like my record doesn't matter at this point, in the grand scheme of things. So I think for artists, it was very important to just stop for a second and read the room. I was really reading the room,
good call. Yeah.
But for me, like the thing that I struggle with now is like, okay, but is what I'm saying very important at all? Like now that it's, now that we're here, I released a song a month ago, and like in the back of my head, I'm like, should I be releasing like a 4-song punk hardcore EP where I'm just like screaming my head off about what's happening? Because like I'm very opinionated, but like that's just not what. Like, do you find yourself, especially now, being like, okay, is what I'm saying important, or are you like totally comfortable with what you do?
I feel comfortable. I mean, maybe in the same way as you're saying, even about like the sports writer, or writing about like the game that happened last night. Like I don't, I mean, I think people do, and they do it. People that are attuned to this kind of writing and do it well and effectively, I think, I applaud them. The kind of storytelling, or I'm not really a storyteller in my lyrics, but the kind of lyrics or expression that come from me are usually not reflective. I mean, we're all like a product of our culture, and, it's impossible to kind of, to be separate from that, but I'm not writing about current events or something. So it's not like in response to something that's happening. So because what I'm writing about is very personal, but hopefully like relatable in the sense of our own sort of journeys of, or some of the themes that I was working with on my last album are like some of the pain of seeing yourself reflected in my case, in this album, like being a father or being a husband. It's like the mirrors that those things hold up, and almost having to pass through that pain in order to be transformed. And that could be painful, but also I think beautiful. So all that to say that feels true to me, regardless of, the social narrative that's happening. And so because of that, I feel comfortable with it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel irrelevant or feel like that, like I can't put that out there or something, So, but I hear what you're saying. I think, maybe there are artistic expressions that kind of aren't sustained through kind of what's happening. But I think, not to say that like mine, that sounds like weird, like mine stands the test of time. I just mean because it's such a personal narrative, it doesn't feel totally affected by what's going on around me, which is probably a naive thing to say, but that's how it feels right now or something. But
so that reminds me, so I voted yesterday, right? So, and I'm in Tennessee, so it's really difficult to vote by mail. So I went in with my wife, and I think as far as like the universality, I don't know, I'm saying that totally wrong, but like,
that sounds right.
But for some reason I'm sitting in the van, like I felt inspired to put on like Bob Dylan, like the times that are changing. I'm like, I'm doing something.
Totally. Yeah. But like, it is empowering. I did the same thing. I mean, I voted, it's easier to do here in PA maybe, but I went to the mailbox and voted. It felt like so empowering to just be like, drop,
Yeah. But he wrote that song like during like the civil rights era. Right?
Yeah.
But he doesn't use like specific language. In some other songs he does, like, I don't know if you're familiar with The Death of Hattie Carroll, which is a great song. Like, you should listen to it when we're done. But like, he's using specific like names and specific like places and stuff like that. But you can still like get like the sentimentality from it. And so, but versus like maybe like a Dead Kennedys where he's talking about Reagan.
Right.
So like,
right. A little more dated. Yeah. Kind of the timestamp, on the music itself, or
like at least a person that, like how much of a song, like talking about Trump, is it going to like translate well to right now? So I don't know. So all that being said is like, I released a song a month ago, nothing to do with politics at all. But like, I still hope it's a universal feeling. And I think that's what writing songs is. It's such a great thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
But like in the future, I'm trying to figure out ways to be like, okay, I'm really concerned about, whether it be like global warming or whatever else. Like, how can you do it in a way where not so much where it's veiled, you don't want to bury what it's about, but still be able to do that. So I don't know. I think that's just like the next challenge for myself, because I feel like in myself, I should be like, maybe I should try that out. No one's telling me to do it. I've been writing songs like I've been writing for X amount of years. No one's brought it up. But sometimes I think things like you're saying, like being a dad, a father. Sometimes like those big moments make you have like big self-reflection points, and you wrote a record about it. Maybe that's like 5 years down the road for me where I'm like, whoa,
it's time to write, dude.
My daughter's 18. So many years later. So I want to talk about like recording that album. So I don't know what your setup is, especially since we're going to be at home for who knows how long. And I imagine you're still writing every now and again. So how through the couple of years that you were writing and recording it, like how did that happen? Cause like when I'm listening to it, like the drums feel like they're recorded, you're not just like, it's not like trash can drums where it's just one microphone hanging out.
Right.
So, how did you pull that off?
So the Geology has always had its handicap has always been in its production, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
and even from the start, it was intentional. I mean, it was intentional. I kind of wrote it into like the DNA of the project, just to kind of give myself a little more grace, in the sense, I'll contextualize that. Like, I have friends that are like super, super talented, amazing songwriters that are so paralyzed by their lack of getting like a perfect kind of production that they want. And I've seen that, and I've dealt with some of that when I was like younger, but I think there's a sense of me that gets so excited to get a song, when I say out there, not even necessarily to like the public ear, but just out there, like, so I can hear it and like I respond to it. That I have kind of just been like, I started Geology, that project, is like using the mic for the first, I think 3 or 4 albums that the one I just did was the 7th like release on Bandcamp. I started in 2007. So like the first like 5 years or so was all just the pinhole mic on the laptop. So, you know, like using that, like, well, that's not true, because for acoustic and any drums, I would use it as a room mic. I would use it for my vocals. And then I would use a mix of actual amps and amp models. Like, I'd kind of blend the two. So what, you know, some of it was direct. Nowadays it's kind of the same. The past couple albums, I've like brought my laptop or a mic and just played, you know, I'll just play drums sometimes for like an hour, different beats, like different parts, and then edit together drum takes. And this time, because I started 2 years ago before the pandemic, but because I was like playing in my house with like a sleeping baby, and I didn't have access to a full kit. I have pieces of one from when I was a kid. This time I actually created like my own drum loop. So I would like have an idea in mind, like maybe like a little like, you know, like rim shot, like snare thing. So I'd set up my room mic, record, you know, 5 minutes straight of different measures of that, and then find the best takes, piece them together, and combine it with a couple, not samples in Logic, but just like the software drum. So I would like map out, like almost sequence like a measure or two, and combine. So a lot of the drums on Light of the Risen Year are a combination of acoustic drum loops that I made, and then combined it with sonically with you know, the drum machine like sounds, and kind of would map out like a drum beat. So that's, and then I kind of do the same method, like just, you know, mic the acoustic, use this mic for singing, and then a lot of it's like amp. I feel like amp models, I know it's like less than, again, so I know it's like less than stellar, like as far as like a release. I'm just kind of lazy with that stuff. I'm just like, it sounds good enough to me. Like, there are some tasteful ones that I found over the years that I just kind of stick with. And then each release, I feel like I get a little more, I squeeze the, you know, the washcloth, get a couple more drops out of it, you know? And so I'm more proud of the sound each time. But sometimes I go back and listen and be like, oh man, I can't believe you know, like I'm proud of the music, with some eyes I'm like, I could have done better with this sonically. Because I almost refuse to work with other people. Not because I'm not even like a control freak with that stuff. I get so excited about like learning how to, I feel like Geology is more about creating a vibe than putting out this polished recording. It's like, here's like a vibe. I feel like you kind of feel like you're in the room with me. That's kind of what I want it to feel like. And it's going to be a little, you know, a little unpolished and raw. But I want it to feel that way. You know, I want the emotion to translate more than I want this like polished. Yeah, it'd be great if I had access to like a producer in a studio, but I think the fact that it's free, that I can work on all my own hours and time, and it's super fun to me to do that. So that's why it's always kind of been the way it is.
Yeah, I feel like you're kind of speaking my language, because so before I moved to Nashville, I did have a full band. We put out an EP, and then so we did that with my buddy Andrew Goldring. He's out of Nashville now. He like we didn't move together, but we ended up
moved. Oh yeah.
But we kind of moved from Salt Lake, so it was kind of like a Salt Lake exodus to Nashville. But so he did it. So like he did a great job. So the drums are super fat, like the bass is fat, like it's the best like I've ever sounded. But then like before I left, like we still had like 3 or 4 songs that we played in our repertoire. And like, well, let's just record it. So like we gathered as many mics as we could to make a makeshift like drum. Like it was like we were using a vocal mic for a snare mic, like
totally.
And so like, so we did that, and I put those up as if it was like, oh, it's just a live session, like what we did, like we did it our like DIY. But now that I'm here, It's like,
Yeah.
what do I do? Like, even though
Totally.
I'm in a city with like a ton of musicians, but like,
Right.
to your point, I can do it on my own time.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like gratification of just getting something done and just like
Yes.
finish and just be like, there it is. Like,
Yes.
and it's not so
Yeah.
much for me like the vibe, because like, we're different musically. Like you've got like
Right.
a more folky, like neutral milks, hotel type of thing. But like for
Yeah.
me, it's like kind of like the physical force. But like the
Yeah.
thing that I struggle with, like what you're saying, because you're able to do like the acoustic drums and then blend
Right.
that, which is really cool. It's like I don't have that either. So like, how do I make these perfect drums sound
Right.
crappier?
Right. Totally. Totally. That's funny.
And so like, so I put out a single, and I feel like production wise, like it's like, okay, it's getting better. And now that I'm like,
Yeah.
now I don't know if you do this at all. Do you go like through YouTube and try to like learn stuff, or are you just
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
okay,
Like little things. Like
yeah,
I have having done the home recordings for like 13 years now. Like I've like I kind of shelved, like, like I have like a template for like how I do things, but
mm-hmm.
I try to learn. I definitely learn more each time, and I'll have, the time or feel inspired to like look up I probably watch like 20 tutorials, on like whether it's like mastering on your own, just certain,
Yeah,
and I don't even have the patience for all of that. I'm probably not even doing it right, but I'll just like pick up one or two like little tips, and then kind of I just mostly do all the stuff by ear. Like, all right, they
mm-hmm.
said to use this thing. Do I hear a difference? And try to like, I don't even make sure things aren't clipping sometimes. Sometimes I like that
Yeah,
overdriven sound, depending on, I think that can be a vibe thing too. Like, I don't think, but all I have to say, like, yeah, I definitely, have you done that too? Like, I've definitely watched like
yeah,
some,
like
some tutorials.
ever since COVID happened, like
Yeah.
if the kids are asleep, the thing that I'm
Yeah.
probably watching is like tutorials. Like I went from like professional wrestling to like to mixing tutorials.
That's
And like
hilarious.
and for me the thing that I like struggled with the most is mastering, especially when it's music that's like on all the time, and making
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
like it's like loud enough but not so loud that like it totally messes up when you
Yeah.
mix it down. And so
Yeah.
like I have like a couple of guys that I specifically will like seek out and watch and go through their whole like library. Like if I'm like
Yeah.
having trouble with like automation or making like
Right.
drums, like programmed drums sound real,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
So like that's kind of like the next level for me, because I don't see myself like I, I don't see myself getting a studio or doing things for other people as far as like recording
Totally.
goes. But like,
Totally. Yeah.
but what if Joe Schmo, like down the street, like is recording something and they know like, oh, can you mix my song? Like it could be cool if I
Yeah.
learn how to do that and do that for other people. So
Joe Schmo?
yeah, have
Like
you
the
heard of
Joe
Joe
Schmo?
Schmo? These Joe
Yeah,
Schmo.
he's the up and coming Joe Schmo. Yeah.
Yep. Um,
What
so
do you use? What recording software do you use
so right
for your own
so
stuff?
I had been using GarageBand. So for the
Mm-hmm.
batch of singles that we did before I left, that was all GarageBand. Like so I have a right here I have a
Yeah.
Scarlett 18i8, which I specifically got for to be able to handle like four so there's like inputs.
Inputs, yeah.
Yeah. And so we did four drum mics. This is getting really nerdy. Four drum mics, one kick. So I stole the kick. I didn't
Okay.
steal it. I borrowed the kick mic from my church at the time.
Okay.
And then whatever mics that we had around. And then my
Right
bass
on.
player and I, like, we just plugged in for scratch tracks.
Yeah.
And so GarageBand now is pretty good. I remember back in the day, like in '08, it was very limited.
Yeah.
But
Has it
then
gotten a lot better? Because I
it's
used
gotten
it.
a lot
I
better.
used it up until 2012 at my first three release. I loved it, and
Yeah.
hopefully Apple doesn't flag me here. I pirated Logic like years
Yeah.
ago and just have been using that, and it felt the same, but just with a ton more options. So
Yeah, and what Apple did something pretty cool is that they made Logic a 90-day trial during COVID.
Oh, they
They
did.
did, yeah. So I downloaded that, and my whole thing was like, I'm gonna record an EP during that 90 days, but like,
Of
you know,
course.
with children and trying to balance life, like it didn't happen. But
Oh
I have the
yeah.
bones of
Yeah.
like of 6 songs on Logic files
Oh,
just
awesome.
waiting for me until I'm able to
Nice.
buy Logic again. That I can get
Right.
cracking on those.
Right.
So I'm back
Me
on.
too. Me
Go ahead.
too, Apple. Until I buy,
Right,
I,
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was about to say Steve Jobs, but R.I.P. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but what's so I've been going. I'm back on GarageBand, and I'm seeing the where I'm going to be spending more time to do.
Yeah.
Because before, like when you're doing like the fake drummer, and
Yeah.
you can in Logic you can break out all of the instruments once you're done with that to like
Yes.
so you can mix the kick on its own or the snare on its own. You can do that in GarageBand, but it's just real. It just takes a long time to like just
Okay.
like copy and paste to different tracks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but I'm just kind of dealing with it until I can. GarageBand's okay for what I'm doing if as long as I'm not
Totally.
expecting like if I'm just doing one-off singles and I'm not doing like a
Yeah.
record,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I feel a little bit better being back like on the B team.
No, no, no doubt. Dude, GarageBand's I mean, it's super user friendly. I used it for
Hmm.
like 6 years. Like I loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember being so excited, like, wow, this is so easy to use. And I can just, the ideas I have, I can, put on paper, quote unquote, so like yeah, it's super. I think it's a good program, especially as a free program.
Oh yeah, for sure. And what's hilarious to me, so I did podcasts like professionally, with one of my old jobs,
Uh-huh.
right? And
Uh-huh.
it's all. I mean, I guess I could have asked to pay for Logic, at one point, but it never crossed my mind just because it just needed to get done. And
Yeah.
so I learned like how to edit like podcasts too within GarageBand. But every now and again there'll be like a podcasting job opening up. It's like
Yeah.
must be fluent in Pro Tools. And I'm just like, why?
Why?
Like it's like I get like if there's like a process and you want to be able to like replicate that. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah.
I
Just
just
the template. Yeah.
yeah, but it's just like over like especially Pro Tools like compared to Logic, it just
Yeah.
just feels really overboard, and that's why like I never cared to get because I'd work in sessions, recording
Yeah.
and I'm trying to like look over the engineer's shoulder and be like, okay, what are you doing? And then I'm like, that just seems like not fun to work in. I don't know if you do the
Yeah.
same thing like when you guys are recording, like trying to pick up things here and there, but yeah, but I
A
guess
little
yeah,
bit.
go for it. Sorry.
I was gonna say a little bit.
Yeah.
It's hard. I usually get intimidated because like the way I do things. I've always been like a super. I guess resourceful is the word, but it's more out of impatience. It's not even in this like I'm not like patting myself on the back. Like I can just like it's more like I've always like I think it's because there's like an instant gratification or like a shortcut, I guess, to
Yeah.
getting somewhere. So like, for example, like, I don't know, like when I was like in my late 20s, like I had like, I'm like, oh, I want like a movie theater kind of sound. Like I just like, I don't know, big speakers from my parents' house. Like everything was sort of like patched together to make this thing that felt like big and sounded big, like how I wanted, but it wasn't like, I'm going to buy like the top notch, doing it the right way. It's sort of like, but I've always made it work, so that's just like an entertainment example. That's,
Yeah.
that's a sort of but all I have to say, it's kind of been the same way with recording where it's like, I just want to get these ideas out. Here's a way to do it. I'm going to try to get better sound each time. But like when I see, like when we're in the studio as Me Without You, or like when the operation was like, and I've seen people do it professionally the way it ought to be done and
Quote,
to get the
unquote.
best sound. I'm like, I have no idea. I mean, I have some idea of what I'm looking at, but I should, I'm not, but like completely naive to it. But then sometimes I'm just like, all these steps you're doing, like, I'm just like, I know it's just like time and investment that they've put into it, but I'm just like, I can't possibly, I don't have the patience to get to that place, so in some ways I don't bother looking over the shoulder because I'm fascinated by it, but I'm also like, I'm not necessarily doing it to pick up tips for my own recording, if that makes sense,
Yeah, and it's funny, like as we're talking about it, like I didn't really plan on talking about this at all, but like now that we're talking about recording, like
Yeah.
you recorded with Brad Wood, who's done like Sunny Day Real Estate, Smashing Pumpkins, Adore, like that's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
Then all the way up to like Will Yip, who
Yeah.
is like So you did record. It wasn't Dom. You did record one with Will, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Because Pale Horses was Will, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
Just want to
yeah.
make sure I'm correct. I didn't have to look at
But he also did Untitled, so
Right.
yeah, and that was Dom.
Yeah. And so like, if it were like, it's hard to say if it were me, like what would I do? But like, I do try to ask questions and stuff like that. But at the same time, like you kind of hear like curmudgeon-y like engineer types like, oh, that guy's just won't shut up.
No, I hear you. Well, what's funny too is like in all these processes, like with Will, actually with all of them, maybe a little less. Yeah, I guess it was like this with Daniel Smith too. But like, I was usually only there for the actual recording process. Mm-hmm. So like getting the the bass raw tracks, So like all of the mixing and the kind of the thing that injected life into the songs was done when we weren't in the studio. Yeah. It was sent to us afterwards. Like because I think for all the producers we work with, I think they don't necessarily they want your input, mm-hmm. but I don't know if they want like 5 or 6 people behind them on a couch. Like, oh, can you do that? Can you try this? Yeah. If you're entrusting them to like to help create your sound for a particular record, I think there's a sense of like, let me do this, and then I'm gonna bounce back, and then you have your input. Like so. All that to say, I haven't been there for the mixing process, just for hearing everybody's parts get recorded.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how crappy it sounds like when you're just like getting like tones in, like
rough mixes.
Like it's hard.
Yeah, rough mixes that haven't been finalized or mastered can sound. It's almost like when you watch like a behind the scenes of like a film, like an epic film. It's like the camera behind the camera filming it. You're like, that's what, like, I remember as a kid seeing like little snippets of like these epic movies being made. I'm like, that's what it looks like when you're there. Like you lose that sense of grandeur or something, that comes with all the other work that goes into after you play your part.
Yeah. You pull back the curtain, and then like and I feel like we've been fed a lie, like with all like the music videos and like the music documentaries where like the band's in the studio and they're putting up like the fader all slow,
Totally.
It's like,
totally.
Or even like the Metallica documentary, it's like,
oh God.
Like, so the process of what actually happens versus like, because I've been in that situation where the whole band is there, but then you realize like there's certain people there are certain people in the band who kind of like just don't care and they're just there because they have to. Yeah. But then you have people like at one point myself who probably like needed to shut up and be like, I don't know about that, like, and so like I kind of have like a new like appreciation of like the people that I have worked with before and what they have to go through dealing with like prima donnas, like myself. So, but then you can take that, like, whatever I can learn from them, but like, I'm finding like a lot of the things have meant a lot more to me as far as like what I've learning about mixing and mastering is from these YouTube videos, because you can like take what you want and I find myself to be more like, if there's a template of how I'm supposed to be doing something, like I tend to gravitate towards that.
Okay.
But then I realized through watching more and more that I was probably doing like way too much and I was focusing on like that process versus my ears.
Right. That's a good balance. I feel a lot of those tutorials, well, some of them I have, some of the good advice has been like, they'll show you these things but they'll also keep like, saying, trust your ear, and especially if you have like a sound in mind, you can trust that.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to do that more. It's like, I see that I can put a multi-presser on this, but like,
right.
Do I need to, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you have anyone in specific that you watch, or is it just more like?
No, I can't even think of any of them. I just like, I'll like look up a question and then like the one that seems to have the most views or a lot of thumbs ups, I'll watch that. Yeah. So I can't remember a particular channel. Mm-hmm. Although there was one time where I watched one and I was like, I know that person, or like the person, and it was like from like Full Sail, like the like music school, like, and I'm like, I saw like someone I knew like doing a vocal tutorial, but so no, not in particular, but I don't know if you do this. I'll like reference, cause this is something I feel like I've even seen like, particularly, I think, did Brad do this maybe? but just listen to other finished records that, like, just going like, so trying to gravitate, like, cause I'll have a sound in mind. I'm like, what bands do this well? And then like, obviously I'm not gonna be able to emulate it, from this like, $100,000 recording that I'm listening to, but I'll be able to at least get my ear bent toward that kind of sonic quality. So I will make reference mixes in that way.
Yeah, I'm starting to do that too, because like so my issue was like with playing loud rock music was like, everything was peaking. So everything totally needs to be louder, but then like my vocals were getting lost, and I had to like use like the gain on the compressor to try to get them over. Like it was awful. It was like it was terrible. And then I'm bringing it back to Will, like I was listening to like a Menzinger's record, because I like whatever song I was working on kind of sounded like that. I was like, all right, so how loud are these guitars really? And I think my biggest like lesson recently, at least with like aggressive music, is like the guitars aren't as loud as you think they are.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
It's really weird to figure out, unless like I was thinking about Green Day Insomniac today, because they're a 3-piece, and that particular record, like the guitars were pretty loud. But then again, like to capture who they are, really, like they're just 3-piece. Like that's kind of what it is.
Yes.
But when you've got like, say a band like mewithoutYou, or just since you brought up like Tiger's Jaw, they're another like good like analog for kind of what I do. It's like their guitars aren't up. I referenced like one of their newer songs. They had a new single out like a couple of months ago.
Oh yeah, like
Warn Me.
back in the beginning.
It's a great song. It's one of their best they've done.
It is.
And you're listening to like the drums are really loud, the vocals are really loud, but the guitars like they're there. Like you can still feel it. The song's still there.
Right. But
that was like the big like level up for me, like referencing that and understanding like on a big rock record, like they're banking on the idea that you're blasting the volume
totally
when you're listening to it, and they're going to come through that way. Like
right.
So
that's a good call. I mean, I remember noticing that stuff too, like listening and being like, wait, these aren't as loud as that. Yeah. I've noticed, it's funny. I can even listen to my own recordings and see how much the guitar has come down, in my mixes over the years, and then like that subtlety really does translate, I think, in a better listening experience, or to a better listening experience.
Yeah, I'm just letting like the mastering do the work, and if I need to bump like more dBs or whatever, like I can figure it out in the EQ or So yeah, I'm learning a little.
Yeah, man, it's fun. It's fun. I mean,
it's a lot of fun.
I feel like I can tell with you too. It's like an enjoyable process. So I know it's. I think that is part of the fun, is getting to create your own sound, even though it's frustrating at times. But it's enjoyable.
Yeah, much to my wife's chagrin, when I'm just like up here like at like 1 in the morning, which is a great segue for live streaming, because there was one for 2 reasons. One that you're thinking of, and then one that's happening to me, because like when COVID happening, I remember Code Orange. I don't know if you're familiar with them, like ridiculously heavy like hardcore band they're out of Pennsylvania, I think more Pittsburgh. But so they had
I don't know them.
So what happened with them is that they had a CD release show in Pittsburgh right as everything shut down, like literally like the day after. Wow. So like they had like 24 hours to put together a live stream. Whoa, and it's badass. They did a great job. On. Like I think 40 or 24 hours. And so that was like, okay, like live streaming. Okay. So like wanted to figure out how to get like not professional sound, but better than just like your iPhone or whatever on a live stream. Yeah. So I stayed up till 2 a.m. once, just trying to like in Logic, trying to like route things, and it just didn't work. Right. But I figured it out like within like, it was like 2 to 3 weeks ago, where at least I can have good sound on a Zoom or.
I listened to that podcast. Yeah. I think I might've responded to it. I forget, but about this, the way that you found the route that you found.
Yeah. And so like now it's kind of like the only way for musicians to like, make money, depending if you're like busking,
right.
Or in your case, do 4 or 5 hour live streams. And we're laughing because like, we're kind of like in our own inside joke here. Cause like I would check it out every now and again, but I feel like the last like couple of weeks have been like, kind of like ridiculous, but like a lot of fun too. And so
Yeah.
maybe instead of me talking, like I want you to talk about the live streams that you're doing on Instagram these days.
Okay. Yeah. So it started, I had never live streamed anything. I was always like afraid of that, like go live button on whatever, Facebook or Instagram, you
Yeah.
know? And then I think the second week of like the end of March, I was sitting in my backyard. It was a nice day. And I was playing some neutral milk and Isaac was like running around our backyard. And so I'm like, I think I was just feeling crazy. Like those neutral milk songs feel like really medicinal to me, you know? So I was just like, I'm going to play a song. I was like, maybe other people want to like feel this too. So I'm just going to go live. You know, I don't know, maybe like 10 friends like tuned in, and like it was probably just mostly people that I knew personally. And we're like, oh, that was like really sweet, you know, like thanks. Like I kind of need something like that just to hear a song played, you know. And I was like, okay. So like, and then it was mostly for me. So in the beginning, in the middle, and sorry, toward the end of March, early April, it was like, I was like, I need a place to like put my emotions, like my content, like to emote and to feel like I'm somewhat connected to people outside of my home right now. So I was like, I would just put on the camera. I wouldn't say anything for the first few times. And I would just maybe get on and play. Like sometimes I think I even just did like an ambient jam for like 10 minutes. And then a couple of times I'd put together these like 3 or 4 song sets. So I started doing that. And then I was like, okay, like I think I'm feeling that. Then it was more of a fun project where I'm like, I want to create like almost like a karaoke version for myself. Like I love, you know, I'm gonna like listen to a song that I love and like create like a pretty quick, usually within a few hours, like, you know, nothing, you know, but like a drum beat that sounds close enough to, you know, drum beat, like try to get the main guitars and bass, what I can hear. And then, you know, a lot of cutting and pasting, creating like a Logic track to play along to and sing along to. So that was its own little fun project. So I started doing those. And at that point, this was like April now, I started mirroring through like I use my iPhone, I put it over in the corner on my bookshelf, and then I mirror like through QuickTime, I think. QuickTime. I plug in and mirror my screen on my big monitor. I have like a big monitor in my laptop. So I can see now myself and see the comments coming in. So it was around that time that I started interacting a little more with folks that were coming into the room. And a lot of those folks were people that come in and out, were people that I didn't know in my day-to-day life, but were the like following me because I was in Me Without You, or just happened to follow my account through that context. So I did that, and it became a little more interactive. And there was like, I was starting to recognize some names of people that were coming in on the regular, and I was like, oh, this is super cool. And then like, I noticed that they were kind of getting to know each other, people in the live stream themselves. I'm like, oh, this is okay. You know, so I did that for about 5 weeks, and then I stopped to finish Geology. So I'm like, I don't have time. Like I'm going to spend like 2 months, you know, recording the vocals and then mixing and all that. So it wasn't until August, about 2 months ago, that I'm like, I think I want to do this again, you know? So now I'm doing it, and now it's getting much more interactive, and I'm noticing a lot of the same people, the things I'm talking about, like people are commenting, like there was a lot of banter starting, you know, and then I'd have friends come in that were kind of, I'm like pretty self-deprecating in my humor. So like friends that knew me were coming in and like making fun of me, like, you know, always wearing the same clothes, or just like, you know, calling me out on my BS. Like it was like, it was just a funny, and then people that like didn't know me, but only through the context of Instagram are like busting on, but I loved it. It was in like, you know, it was in like a spirit of love, you know, of affection, but there was a lot of like bonding that way. And then there was a lot of like questions coming in, and I was answering. So it evolved into something I had no idea it was going to evolve into. So it became this like community of folks that now there are like, there are like different like group chats, like DMs that have started. And like in a very, what's been beautiful about it is like, there's been this very supportive community. Like people have like shared some like really heavy stuff that they're going through. Like there's been so much support, but then so much like ridiculous humor. So it's really, this community has formed around it that I did not expect or predict. So it kind of went from being like a live stream where I was playing 20 minutes worth of music to like it being hours of basically hanging out with people. You know? So it's like, like I invite people to come into the chat. So that was another feature too, where it almost evolved. Someone was like, hey Greg, I made you like a logo. So then I put it up like on like the, you know, cause you can add a picture to your corner, almost as like a little like late show kind of thing. So that happened. And then other people were like, my friend Vahak was like, hey, I made you these like 2 theme songs, you know, almost like to invite guests into the room. So it evolved into this sort of unscripted improv talk show. The spirit of it is still the same. I still want to hold space for people that are feeling lack of connection and community right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's still like a softness in the sense of like, there's still the music element of it. And sometimes it's a little more curated in like the first hour, but then it starts to go off the rails and just becomes like people coming into the room. And I've had people come in and share like music, poetry, like, a zine someone made, like painting, like these really cool ways of interacting with, and I've done it on the Me Without You stream too. Where I've had people that are just like lining, people send all these requests to come live and I can only accept a few, but people have kind of come in and asked questions about the band or just kind of talked about where they're at emotionally with COVID and all that stuff. And then one more thing I'll say about it is for the Me Without You channel, I want to do, so yeah, it's kind of spiraled into this, kind of wild, like fun, community thing. She's sleeping with Isaac, but yeah. But for the Me Without You one, I wanted a little more intentionality. Yeah. So about once a month, I've been going into the Me Without You one. And last month, I wanted to start like an informal conversation series about like what inspires people, like talk to artists, people that I've toured with and stuff. So the first one I did of the informal conversation was with the artist Kimbra from New Zealand. So we had met online like in like 2007 or something. She was still living in New Zealand and like had reached out, and she had known Me Without You, and we kind of like formed this like pen pal kind of music friendship over the years. And then the next thing I know, like the Gautier song comes out. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Kimber. I had like, we lost touch, and I'm like, whoa, that's a huge break. It's pretty awesome. I mean, she had already put out her own record. I don't want to, it wasn't like it was a break in a sense for her, I think, but she had already been an artist in her own right. So we had this really cool conversation on the Me Without You chat, just about like contemplative prayer and sort of like self-reflection during this time of the pandemic and during Black Lives Matter stuff. And, kind of what we were talking about, like what it means to like create in the midst of all that. And also we talked about spiritual practice. It was really fun. So I had this idea like, man, I've encountered a lot of cool people that I like look up to, or like have really gained respect for over the years touring. So I reached out to I have about 4 or 5 people lined up, not the date set yet, but to like come on the Me Without You stream and talk about like their own creative process during this. So I guess that's a little, not plug, but just that's where I want to go with the Me Without You side of the streams, but also still have some of the goofiness. But it's hard to have that community when there's that many more people coming in and out of the room. Right. But on my account, which is a lot smaller, people come in and out, but there's like a core group of like, 15 people that are like kind of always there, just kind of joking around and being really funny and sweet. So.
Yeah, no, I'll say that I really appreciate it. 'Cause like, I'm not going into an office right now. Most of my friends are in a different state. So like just going in and just seeing like ridiculousness, especially like the running, like Peter Hook gag. 'Cause like he's one of my favorite bass players of all time. Okay. And so like, it just kind of hits home like for me a little bit more, just thinking this like curmudgeon-y, like British dude, amazing bass player. And like, to explain to whoever's listening to this, like there's like a meme within this live stream about summoning where you can at people and they'll be like, cause my sister had done it to me, so I kind of, so like, I know like what it looks like on like the notification end now.
So you get a notification, right? Saying like that you were mentioned in a live stream or something. Okay.
And then like, whether it's live or not, like you can click on it.
Okay.
Like,
right.
It's still there when it's not live, but
but you can't, it doesn't take you anywhere at that point.
Right. But if it's going, you can get in there. So the gag is like, you're trying to invite Peter Hook into, and whoever else is in the live stream to invite him in, and it's just kind of turned into this ridiculous thing. And I just remember being up one night. It was like 1 a.m, and I'm just like, it was during when my wife, I thought my wife had COVID. I thought it was a false negative, like because she was she was, it was bad, not terrible. I shouldn't say that, but it was like bad enough where I had to sleep on the couch, So I'm just sitting there on the couch, just like. 3/4 away asleep, just like laughing my ass off, like not loud, but like, just trying to like keep it all in. So all that to say is that a lot of people are talking about live streaming now, like like
Yeah.
industry people like, oh, that's what you got to do. You have to like cultivate a
Yeah.
community. You've done it without like even having that be like your intention. You know,
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
not like throwing out your Venmo or your PayPal.
No.
Whereas like I'm kind of in a position where I feel like I need to do that.
And I
But
think
like,
it's fine
yeah,
that people do. It's
yeah, yeah,
I'm not crapping on that idea at all. I just say
yeah.
it's not. Yeah, it wasn't my approach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but your approach was just like, I just want to hang out. Whereas like that's part of like kind of what I want to do too, because it's great like
Yeah.
to do that. But like I think if they were to be like, if someone was asking me about it, like, oh, what should I do? I'd be like, check out what Greg's doing, because like it's not
That's
like
awesome.
serious at all. Because like you've got like your
Right.
Under Oaths and Code Orange, like the cool stuff that they've done, and like people
Yeah.
are beginning
Yeah.
to do
Totally.
more like produced type of things. But like, but what about us? You know, that only
Yeah.
I mean, I have a couple of mics in my Scarlett here,
Right.
but like, but within an Instagram, you don't have that. You don't have that cool
No.
sound. There might be a way. I'm trying to think of a way that I can dream about it, but like it's just like you're playing your music like through your speakers and it's just coming through your phone and it sounds
Yeah.
fine. But like it
Right.
sounds good enough and it's
Yeah.
entertaining as hell. So I would say
Right on.
if you're wondering, if you're listening to this and wondering like how should I do this, like I don't know, take a cue, because it's real to you, like you're reading. You didn't mention this, but you read like fan fiction that you wrote when you were like what, a teenager?
Yeah, like 120 pages of it over the course of a month. Yeah.
It's like Star Wars. Like you're just like screw it.
Totally.
There's no way like I can do that. Like because like, hey, I don't do that. I didn't do that. But I think there's a way that you can be like, okay, you don't, because I think some people might want to be like serious, like I'm an artist, but there's only
Right.
so many people that can really pull that off. But at this point, I think
Yeah.
everyone, like musicians and like music lovers, just understand that we're all in this crappy
Totally.
place. And it's just like,
Yeah.
whereas before, like it was kind of a meme, like, oh, I'm gonna go on my live stream and play guitar or whatever. But it's just like at this point,
Right.
who cares anymore? At least for me.
Yeah.
So
No. I feel that, and it's funny because sometimes I'll feel a little self-conscious, like where I'm like, all right, like I'm a grown ass man, like doing this thing where like, because we've had this kind of spooky theme in October.
Yeah.
Like you talked about summoning Peter Hook, which is basically just like a text bomb, but like a
poor Peter Hook.
What do you call it? Yeah, totally. So it's basically like, everybody's adding at Peter Hook to get him into this live stream when he's probably sleeping over in the UK. And like, it became a joke where, summoning him. We're then like, did you see the review? Like
The
video
reveal?
where like we're basically someone. This is what's fun. So this is where the community gets involved.
Yeah.
Where there's these two folks in this couple in Georgia, Zach and Kaylee, have been a part of this joke. So they created like a mystery account called like The Real Peter Hook, came onto the live stream, and it was like 3 candles in front of like a framed Peter Hook
I
picture
was there.
with like a strobe light. Yeah, it was insane.
It was creepy.
That's what's been it's super creepy. And then with this like modulated voice. So all about to say, like doing things like that. And then like, I think I started a stream where like I put on this creepy like Halloween sound, turn off my lamp, and I'm like starting the stream on the ground, like wondering what happened. And I'm like, the next day I'll be like a little cringy, like, did I just do that? And like put it, and then like
questioning your life
like,
at that point.
Totally. I am a little bit, but I think to what you said, like in a sense, it's like, well, this is who I am. Like, and I think the stream does go back and forth. I think there are moments that feel like sweet and cathartic, and then there are moments that just feel super goofy. But I think what I appreciate about that, and that people have responded to that, because I think like to have a place that feels like you're hanging out at a time where that's not as not as easy to do, So I think to create a place to hold space and create a place where people can feel connected to each other in a way that they can laugh and sometimes like feel are feeling really tender and want to cry if they hear a song that like that because I do a lot of covers and stuff, so that I think just trying to like ride that wave and kind of stay with that as opposed to create the super curated thing. And that's not who I am. Like, I think the most serious I'll get is having those conversations with different artists, you know, and that can feel like the way to bring some seriousness to it, but also not take myself too seriously.
So a real life follow-up question. So you're on like, so I'm saying this for myself, you know, because like, you know, we both have wives and kids. Like, when you started doing it, was there like some sort of like buy-in, like, hey, honey, I'm going to do this tonight for X amount of hours? like, is it really just like a communication? Does she think like you're nuts? Like, cause I see her in there, like she's participating herself. So like, maybe the question for those who are like listening to this and maybe like have some sort of like life situation to like, is it really just like communicating? Like, this is what I want to do, or like, what is it for you?
Yeah. So for me, it's like, I would kind of use I'm mostly like hanging with my son. My wife, she can do her job from home. She does some bookkeeping for some restaurants in Philly. So she can do most of that. She might have to go in, you know, once every 2 weeks and pick up some paperwork, but she's mostly doing it from home. Excuse me. And so when she would hang with Isaac for a couple hours in the afternoon to give me a break, I would like work on like songs. I would like come up and record some cover stuff that I would play to later. And back when the stream was shorter, it didn't really matter. It was like, all right, I'm going to go upstairs for a half hour and do this thing. And she actually did a few of those with me too and sang with me. The longer ones came actually kind of right as she was starting. She started a school program, an undergrad program in social work. So like, she's now working and doing that. So like, one thing too is she's also kind of been embraced by that community and has like now forged some like friendships with people through that medium. So I think it's felt like community for her too. But I'm like, she's a little more of a private person in the sense of like not, I mean, she can get in front of the camera, but I'm a ham. Like I just love it. Like I just think it's funny and fun. So like, I don't feel self-conscious doing it. So I think her seeing that, like, I don't want to, you know, it sounds funny to talk about the stream this way, but honestly, I told Marley, I was like, having an outlet like that is creative, but that at its core has brought people together, feels so life-giving for me, and feels like at a time that can feel like Groundhog's Day, where I'm like, because I'm not like touring and like I'm taking care of my son mostly like throughout the day, it's like it can feel like every day is the same. So to have this break in that is something that is creative, but more it's just like, again, like more facilitating a space for people. Though the combination of those things is so life-giving for me that it's almost felt like a job for me, where I'm like, it gives me something to look forward to. That sounds like, it's not like I have nothing to look forward to in my day, but that's not the case. But I think because like I'm a night owl, like Marley's not usually, so she's usually around that time. It's not even that like, it's like I'm taking away from our time hanging out, because she would either be in bed, like falling asleep, watching a movie or like doing homework. So in a way it hasn't interfered, because I still put my son to bed, and then my daughter, she's getting older now, so she like kind of stays up in her room, but like, it doesn't feel like it's interfering with other things. So all that to say, yes, communication, and we do check in about it. But the biggest thing isn't necessarily how long I do it, but it's like, am I going to have enough energy to wake up early with my son after having streamed for 2 a.m.? So I've been running on less sleep, and I've tried to have better boundaries. Like I try not to go 2 nights in a row, although I might go a little bit tonight, but I try not to go 2 nights in a row, and I try to, it's kind of gone over, but I've tried to end it at like a godly hour so I can at least get like 6 hours sleep, you know, and be present with my family the following day, you know, so.
For sure. So I've kept you for a while, but I've got one last question relating to the live stream. So you've been doing true karaoke, like not just creating. So you've been going on YouTube. I imagine it's
evolves
YouTube.
Into that,
So
it is YouTube.
So to my joy, I must have missed when you did Len Steal My Sunshine. Because like I made a comment about it. I'm like, because someone else. I just missed it, but I watched it this morning.
Yeah.
So what has been your favorite karaoke song to perform during these live streams?
So what's funny is like I'll typically go to songs that I love singing, which for me a lot of that is like 80s new wave stuff. I just love the melodies, and I feel like my voice can kind of work for those kind of songs. But beyond those songs that I actually love, I think the most fun I've had is a song I don't love at all, but it's become this guilty pleasure to sing, which is Train Drops of Jupiter. And so like I was gonna say that or Bare Naked Ladies One
Yeah.
Week. They're both like kind of embarrassing to do, but One Week is very challenging because there's so much of that yeah, there's so many like words packed into those like kind of like hip hop cadence sort of parts. I feel bad using that word for Bare Naked Ladies, but
adjacent
but yeah, totally. But Train Drops to Jupiter, it's just for some reason it reminds me of Enquist, that song. We always kind of joke about like the the best soy latte, just like the specific like vocal delivery and like references of that song are so like early 2000s. So I think that song, but it also has like, it's also a good melody. So it's like singing these like lyrics that are like, self-aware enough that know that they're like super corny, but there's this like guilty pleasure in singing it. So that's not taste wise, that's not like the best song that I like, but that's kind of been for me the most fun one to do. So like, we revisit it sometimes.
I've only done karaoke twice in my life, and one.
Wow.
Like I think I wouldn't.
That surprises me.
I just wouldn't like my sister. She would just do it. She just does it.
Yeah.
But for me, I need to be like in the vibe, like to do it. Like I need to be around other people. I'm not like shy about it, but like
sure.
Like for instance, when I'm in your live stream, I don't want to go live with you because like that's just not my vibe.
It's not your
to
style.
Just be like,
okay.
Me,
yeah.
Like, but if I'm at a bar with my sister or friends and they're doing, I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. But I did I do Cake the Distance.
Oh, nice. That's a great song.
So I get it.
That's a fun one.
Yeah,
it's a fun
great.
one.
Like, use it. Do it. You should do it.
Totally.
But because I think like that song, like there's just so like, because he's so monotone when he sings.
Yes.
But then he gets like going like right before the chorus. He's driving.
Ramps it up.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. I suggest that one. So I enjoy it. Anyway, unfortunately, we got to say goodbye. I got to eat. I got to unfortunately watch the debates. I don't have to do that, but it's been an hour and a half now. So, but yeah, thanks for coming on. It's great to talk about music and life and creativity and all this other crap that goes into it,
Yeah, it's been great, Matt. Thanks. Seriously, thanks so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah. I've known you for many years, so I was looking forward to connecting over this, and getting to talk.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're going live tonight, I'll probably pop in and
awesome.
Say hi and maybe lurk a bit. But no, it's great.
Right on.
Cool.
Awesome, man. Thank you, brother.
No problem.